Hey folks, Segasonicfan here, and today I'm taking a look at the Lutron light dimmer. These might come in different brands, but I think Lutron is the most famous of them all, and I have a bunch of these around the house, and they are pretty great actually. They only work with incandescent bulbs, the regular light bulbs. I believe that's incandescent, and they're, you know, fully AC operated, and they're basically just an AC dimmer with a switch built in. I've always wanted to crack one of these open and see how they work because AC stuff, you know, mains supply stuff, I don't regularly work with. In fact, it's always a bit of a mystery to me because I work with it so little because it's so dangerous, honestly, and there's not a lot of need to nowadays. But at least not for my applications. But I had one that was kind of acting up on me, so it was the perfect excuse to take it apart and start taking a look. First and foremost, make sure you exercise lots of safety precautions working on any sort of mains AC stuff. I have not plugged this in yet while it's been a bare circuit board. I'm actually probably going to make a test setup with a fused socket on my bench, fully insulated with this silicone pad, and then have that go to a surge protector, and then have that go to my outlet, which I do have access to my circuit breakers. I'm going to be wearing rubber gloves and eye protection as well. So make sure when you're working on AC mains that you do those things and you do not injure yourself. Do this at your own risk, etc., etc. So this is an interesting piece of kit, as they would say in Britain. And it's, yeah, not at all poorly made. Obviously, you're going to have a linear pot in here to do the dimming adjustment. But the mystery is this IC right here that's kind of upside down. It's a TO220 package. And if I show you here on my microscope, I barely got it picked out and took a picture of it. And you can see it's an ST chip, and it's 130-082. You can see there on the top of the chip. Now, I looked that up, and surprisingly, it's actually a MOSFET. I was not expecting that. I was expecting a triac, and I'm still not convinced that it's not a triac. But that's what the datasheet says in my search, or at least the search indication. Could not find, actually, a datasheet for it. I found 130-009 or something like that, which seems plausible as an upgraded version of it. But if that is the case, it's a very high voltage, very high current MOSFET. And if we look at the trace path to try to understand how it's working, it seems possible, but still a bit unlikely, as it does go directly to the AC line. But maybe it's doing some trickery I'm not familiar with. And so here is your AC input. I should make a mention of this. This is kind of really interesting. So those two pins actually make sort of incisions into the AC wires here. And that's how this is installed. Taking this apart was a bit of a doozy. I ended up using a clamp to squeeze the shell. It's kind of a nice trick you can do with glued plastic. And so I clamped it to compress the shell, and then was able to use a putty knife to pry out the case. Now, once you do that, though, you still have the weird AC connection. And so I ended up, you really have to push in on the AC cable to get the two contacts here that are kind of cut into the cable out and removed. Now, if you take a look back at our circuit, try to zoom in here a little more, we'll see we have the AC here. This goes to our mystery chip, which, if it is a MOSFET, I mean, it looks like it could be, but it's weird. I don't know. I've never known of an AC MOSFET before. Doesn't say anything special like that on the datasheet that I did find, which is not for the exact part. But in any case, it's very possible that this, because the pinout is the gate source drain, which would match this trace layout because you have the large trace here from the AC, which would be the source, the drain, which is your output to the fuse, obviously, and then a small trace, which is the control signal, which would be a gate. So Interesting how they're accomplishing that. This fuse looks like it's rated at 5 amps, and it's a 220 volt rated fuse, big chunky fuse. Big design flaw in my opinion. You should never, ever, ever have a fuse after a transistor, especially in an AC circuit. That is insane and dangerous. And I don't, for the life of me, know why they did that other than to save board space or some kind of cost. That really should not be the case. This fuse should be the first thing this circuit goes through to protect the mains, because otherwise if this shorts out, then your friggin' wall outlet can catch fire. If you're lucky, your circuit breaker just pops. But yeah, that's a really, really bad and weird decision. Unless I'm missing something. Doesn't seem like, because it does go through a whole other circuit here. Anyway, the other thing I'm not crazy about, but is not the end of the world, is the way it makes contact is through, you know, the actual click mechanism that you hear when you go to shut it off goes click. And what it's doing is it's just disconnecting this here. I've never been a big fan of these kind of contacts. They invariably, what they do is they arc. And so when they arc, when there's basically when there's a high current path that's going to make it an electrical connection, when it gets closer and closer and closer, it actually forms a capacitor. And that capacitor will create a spark, like a miniature spark, which is an arc across the contacts as they're about to connect. One way to do this is you make you have a capacitor here to absorb that current, which sometimes helps. But of course, they didn't do that here in something this cheap. So we don't have that. And moreover, this is an AC mains contact. So yeah, of course, this is going to arc a lot, you know, especially when you're switching it on and off. Now, to their credit, it doesn't switch on and off until the dimmer is all the way down, and then the plastic hits that switch. And what that looks like is this is keyed for your actual slider, and then you'll see this plastic here on the side is what hits that little copper curve. And switches this off. Now, so to their credit, they do it when it's quite dim, right? Then you switch it off, which means the lowest amount of current is going to be going through here as it does its switching, which is good. I guess you shouldn't, don't turn it on really fast, or I guess it doesn't matter, because I guess it still has to mechanically disconnect. But in any case, it's still not a great design. And as I looked at mine, it did have a bunch of crud on it, which could be how it broke. I'll find out later. Invariably, I do have to clean these often whenever I see them, because that's what they do. They break. Also, interesting note, I've never seen a PCB mounted one of these. It's quite interesting. It actually solders to the PCB and then has a punch through hole like that. Strange. And then, of course, we got the AC wire just crosses over here through a lead, an exposed lead, which is, I mean, I guess a good thing that this thing is sealed, because that's pretty gutsy. Just an AC lead just kind of sticking out. And then, of course, we've got it passing through an inductor coil and what appears to be, I believe, this blue guy here is going to be an AC capacitor. And then we have an inductor coil, and we've got two resistors, two chunky resistors. I don't know what that other blue guy is over there. Maybe that's an MOV. And then we've got a diode right here. And then this blue guy is a total mystery. Really interesting part. I don't believe I've seen before. I want to say it's a fuse, but that seems unlikely. And let's see if there's any labeling to indicate what that actually is. Nope. I think... yeah, they didn't really print a lot on this board. It's not a diode from the markings. You can see the black stripe under the diode for the footprint. And yeah, I don't know what that is. It looks like some kind of pico fuse, but it seems unlikely because there already is a fuse. But who knows? Anyway, I wish I had more expertise in AC circuits. Feel free to explain in comments if you know more about AC circuits than I do, which wouldn't take much because I never look at AC circuits, which is why I wanted to open this one up and learn. I am interested in how the potentiometer works in the circuit, and I guess it comes after the inductor and then between. If you look at the linear pot, you have these 3 points, I believe, compose this point, and these 2 compose the linear pot. Interesting. If we look at, okay, so that mystery blue part goes to what, oddly enough, would be, if we're going off the assumption that this is an N-channel FET, that comes from the gate of the N-channel FET to the inductor coil and the linear pot, and the rest of the circuit. Interesting. And so then one of the AC lines goes to that diode, which then goes to 2 resistors. One is a diode and a resistor to the other half of the AC, the hot line, and the other one, I presume it's the hot. And the other one goes to the other side of the linear pot. And so there you have it. And then the MOV or whatever is between, yeah, one of the legs in the potentiometer and the output of what would be our mystery FET. So anyway, I could draw up a schematic, but I don't think it's worth the effort. And honestly, I'm not sure how much more time I want to spend poking at this because I got other things to do. But it was interesting to take it apart and look at it. And maybe some point later, I'll learn more about how these work. It would be nice to kind of design my own that's a little bit better, a little bit safer. And these are a little pricey too. These are like $30 a piece. I don't think they make ones that are really cheaper than that. So if I design my own, I might be able to save some money. Anyway, I hope this video was interesting and useful to you. And I just make these videos to help people and learn cool stuff. So don't really care if you subscribe or anything like that. Hope you had fun checking it out. This is Segasonicfan, signing out.